Hey, you know what? I thought I was bugged, but apparently it's still like this shit. So whatever, let's continue. Dried up and began to give off a hideous smell. Her heart broke before she realized it had been an experiment. Oh. A certain experiment took place, but it differed from what he had hypothesized. He was a scientist at the Nozomi Technology Company, a follower of the Church of God's Natural Born Light, one of the central figures in Nozomi Technology Ultra Classified Project Noah, and the man who had deciphered fun blah blah blah. I don't know how to read this shit. He offered up his wife when on the verge of childbirth as an experimental subject, and at the same time, this was also an order from the revered founding father of his sect. It was also something he himself had suggested in order to make the experiment a success. What the fuck? It was called the Mana experiment, based on the code name given to the second daughter his wife had delivered. Entrusting his elder daughter, 15 years old at the time, to a church facility, he spent 24 hours a day observing his confined wife in Mana. The room his wife had made herself think of as her company housing was a test site prepared by Nozomi Technology, and the Noah 2 prototype he had developed was stationed there. Taking snapshots of people's thoughts, projecting images into their vision, controlling their five senses. The effect of all these were being tested out on his wife Mana and Mana. The human subjects confined to the experimental grounds. Jeez. Woo. The many ways in which electromagnetic energy affects the human body remained unnumbered, and naturally, he had planned to halt his experiment if his wife or Mana experienced any physical abnormalities. The experiment met with an accident soon after its commencement. But a month after her birth, Mana died. The cause of death was unknown. An accident no one could have prevented. Overwhelmed with grief, he sought to stop the experiment, but he wasn't permitted to. So said his employer. His employer had been speaking of a grotesque spectacle inside the test site. Refusing to acknowledge Mala's death as reality, his wife held the child's dead body and treated it as if it were alive. In fact, her eyes reflected a living Mana. Oh, that was due to the influence of the Noah 2 prototype, and in a certain sense it was the ideal situation under which to test its performance. They turned a deaf ear to his will. At last, he began to think that perhaps continuing the experiment like this would be to his wife's benefit. The wife he saw through a one-way mirror lived out every day in bliss, embracing her child's corpse. Woo boy! She talked gently to the child while gazing at the greenery of Yoyogi Park, which was a fake projected into her sight from the wallpaper made to resemble a window that was pasted to the wall. The lady next door, as well as the housewife, were research team staff members who took care of his wife undercover. As long as the experiment continued, his wife's heart would never be broken. At least, he told himself it was for his wife's sake. Perhaps his heart had broken before hers did. At some point, his goal became not to complete Noah 2, but rather to allow his wife to go on dreaming. And so his employer declared a sudden end to the experiment, which had continued for close to 2 years. Damn.
データは十分取れました。ノア2本格稼働は間近です。この実験ももう続ける意味はないでしょう。
He desperately resisted, but it got him branded a traitor, and he was taken off the project. The day of the test site's closure, as their one kindness to him, they permitted him to be present, albeit tied down in the laboratory. And his elder daughter, who he had not seen in person for 2 years, was also compelled to attend. Oh my god. His daughter looked confused when she saw him.
父さん、これはどういうこと？母さんに何をしたの？母さんが抱いているのは一体。
Shit, boy. He couldn't answer. Guilt over what he had done had made him incapable of looking his daughter in the face. Meanwhile, the beginning of a ghastly ceremony approached. The neighbor had already become unable to endure Mana's putrid stench, and the housekeeper wept at his wife's word as she left the experimental site. All right, so that's why the guy was barfing earlier. Like, he suddenly barfed. I wonder why. Okay, now it makes sense. Yeah, I totally missed that. The baby's gonna be beautiful. And the equipment stopped, and the dream ended, and his wife broke. At the sight of her child, who to her appeared to have suddenly transformed into a mummy, she tore at her head, ripped out her hair, dug at the skin of her face with her nails, and in the end, began devouring her child. Oh my god. Woo! Began devouring her child's desiccated body. Laughing madly, she rammed her head into the wall. And finally, stabbing a kitchen knife into her own neck, I guess? Into her eyes. Oh, that's even better. Died. Oh, so that's why it's black. You don't want to see this. His daughter screamed and cried, viewing the atrocity of her mother's last moments through a one-way mirror. You know, it's nice to see something good happening once in a while in a video game with all the fucked up shit. Researchers held his daughter up to both sides and hauled her away somewhere. He was not allowed to chase after his one remaining family member. He blamed himself, believing he had brought all of it upon himself. Since the time 2 years ago when he made up his mind to continue the experiment. Oh my goodness gracious me. Since the time 2 years ago when he made up his mind to continue the experiment, it should have been obvious to him whether his reasons may have. I don't know. Whatever. Afterward, Senna interrogated Kozupi about something wild-eyed, and then finally sped on her way alone. Kozupi went chasing after her, but I remained unaware of why Senna had suddenly started acting like a woman possessed. And now I was plodding through the neighborhood of Shimokitazawa. After I walked a little further, I'd reached my parents' house. It was less than 30-minute walk away from my base. I wondered if Nanami would be home. Though less so than in Shibuya, there were many people walking along the streets of Shimokitazawa. The Ispire commotion continued to have pronounced influence. There were people who grinned mockingly when they saw me, or even took out their cell phones and nabbed pictures. Devoured by humiliation and shame, I hurried along the road home. Rimi murmured. I still lowered, as she walked a little behind me. In the time it had taken us to reach this point, she had repeated the same thing over 10 times. Sure. Even if she apologized to me, there was nothing I could say in response. I didn't know Rimi. It'd been, let's say, that way since we first met. Rimi had supported me. Rimi had been there for me. But in the end, I still didn't understand a thing about her. Jeez, pardon. The whole time I'd let things stay that way. Ambiguous. Unresolved. Maybe because I had an inkling that once everything became clear, I wouldn't be able to stay with Remy any longer. I fear that.
どうして僕と一緒にいてくれるの？
Once I mustered my courage, it was all I could ask her. The reason why Remy spent her time together with the likes of me. Was it because of, after all, she was attempting to entrap me, the same as you were? But the answer she gave back to me wasn't anything of the sort.
あなたに目覚めて欲しくないの。
Right, well, I think this is a good part to stop playing. Because honestly, I'm kind of low, kind of getting on my last breath here. All right, I'll see you guys next week, Sunday, when I'll record some more. See you guys then. Bye.